Have you ever walked home and felt someone behind you, even when the street looked empty? That was me last night. New apartment, new neighborhood, and the kind of silence that makes you hear your own heartbeat. I thought it was all in my head, until he crossed the street and followed me to my door. Before we continue, if you love stories that feel a little too real, make sure to subscribe and turn on the bell, as this helped me create more amazing stories. So let's begin. I moved into my new apartment about a week ago. Quiet little complex just outside the city. It's not fancy, but it's mine. My first place completely on my own. I work late shifts, usually finishing around midnight, sometimes a little after 1. The streets are always empty when I get back. That kind of eerie, hollow silence where even your footsteps sound too loud. Last night started like any other shift. I was tired, half asleep on my feet, just excited to finally go home. It was around 12:30 a.m. when I parked my car. The tenant lot is about 200 feet away from my building's entrance. It's a short walk, but at that hour it feels like a mile. I remember calling my best friend as I got out of the car. I didn't even really have a reason. I just wanted someone on the phone while I walked. Maybe because it was my first week here. Or maybe because I just didn't like the way the street looked at night. The lamps flicker, and the shadows stretch weirdly across the sidewalk. Anyway, I had my phone to my ear, chatting and laughing softly. Then, out of the corner of my eye, I noticed someone across the street. A man walking parallel to me. At first, I didn't think much of it. It's an apartment complex. People live here, but something about him caught my attention. He wasn't really walking anywhere. He was just matching my pace. Every time I slowed down, he slowed down. When I stopped to dig my keys out of my bag, he stopped too, just standing there under a streetlight. My friend was still talking on the phone, and I remember whispering, "Hey, there's this guy across the street. I think he's walking the same way as me." She told me not to freak out, that it was probably nothing. I wanted to believe her, so I laughed it off. Said maybe I was being paranoid and kept walking. But then, when I turned toward my building, he crossed the street. Not immediately. He waited a few seconds, just long enough to make me think maybe he wasn't paying attention to me. But then he stepped off the curb, hands in his pockets, casual, too casual, and started walking directly toward my side of the road. I tried to play it cool. I held my phone closer to my ear and said, "Okay, I'm at my door now, hold on." Even though I was still halfway down the path, I didn't want him to know which building was mine. He was wearing a bright orange jacket. I remember that vividly, because it stood out against the dark street. I could see him in my peripheral vision, pretending to look at something in the distance, like he was waiting for someone, but there was no one else around. By the time I reached the building's keypad, my heart was racing so fast I could barely punch in the code. I kept glancing over my shoulder, and each time I did, he was closer. Not running, not even hurrying, just walking with this slow, steady stride. When the door finally clicked open, I slipped inside fast and shut it behind me. The glass in the entryway was tinted, so from the outside it would look black. But from the inside I could still see him. He had stopped on the sidewalk right in front of the building, just standing there, looking around like he was lost. He didn't even try to come in. I stayed there for a few seconds, holding my breath, whispering to my friend what was happening. She told me to go upstairs and lock everything, but I couldn't move yet. Something in me just needed to see what he'd do next. After maybe 30 seconds, and which felt like forever, he turned and walked away. Not down the street, but around the corner, behind the building. I went upstairs as quietly as I could, heart pounding. I locked my door, checked the windows twice, He even turned off all my lights so it looked like no one was home. I stayed on the phone until almost 2 a.m., just waiting for the sound of footsteps in the hall or a knock at the door, but nothing. I tried to tell myself it was fine. Maybe he really was lost. Maybe he lived nearby. Then tonight happened. It was just after midnight again. I parked in the same spot. I know. I should have chosen somewhere else. And as I got out of my car, I had this strange feeling, like the air was heavier somehow, like something was off. I scanned the street automatically. Empty. No one there. But I swear, the second I locked my car, I heard footsteps. Not echoing from a distance, close. Soft, measured, following the same rhythm as mine. I didn't look back. I couldn't. My brain just kept screaming, "Don't turn around, just walk." I made it to the door, keyed in my code faster than I ever have, and bolted inside. This time I didn't even check the window. I just ran straight up the stairs and locked myself in. When I finally dared to peek through the blinds in my living room, I almost screamed. That same man, the one in the orange jacket, was standing under the streetlight again. Only this time he wasn't pretending to look around. He was staring straight at my window. No movement, no phone, no cigarette, just standing. I backed away from the blinds and turned off every light I had. I could still feel his eyes on me, even though I wasn't looking anymore. I called the police, trying to keep my voice steady, and they said they'd send someone to drive through the area. By the time they arrived, he was gone. They told me it was probably nothing. Maybe a delivery driver, maybe someone waiting for an Uber. But I know what I saw. That orange jacket, the way he mirrored my every step, how he knew exactly which building I went into. It wasn't random. And now every night, I catch myself peeking through the blinds around midnight, half expecting to see that same figure under the streetlight. Some nights, the street's empty. Some nights, it's quiet. But twice now, I've seen something. Bright flash across the sidewalk before disappearing behind the cars. Maybe it's just my imagination. Or maybe he never really left. You ever love someone so much that you start to fear the world around them? That's where this started. My name is Laura, and this is about my daughter, Emma. She's 22, beautiful, confident, the kind of girl everyone notices when she walks into a room. And at first I was proud. I mean, what mother wouldn't be? She's kind, funny, and lights up every space she's in. But after a while I started to notice things. Strange things. It began one evening when she came home late from work. She said she felt like someone was following her. Just a feeling, she said. No proof. I brushed it off, told her maybe she was just tired. But that same night, I looked out our living room window and saw a car parked across the street. Headlights off, engine running. I could see a shadow inside, someone watching our house. The next day it was gone. But then it came back. Same car, same time. That's when the fear started. Every mother's instinct is to protect her child. But fear twists that instinct into something darker. You start to think of every way to make your loved one invisible, to hide them, to keep them safe. At first I just suggested things. Emma, maybe skip the makeup today. Try wearing darker clothes. You stand out too much. I said it softly, gently, like advice. She didn't think much of it. But then one day she posted a picture online. Bright dress, smiling, sunlight in her hair. It got hundreds of likes, and that night, the car came back. That's when I snapped. I told her she needed to tone down how she looked, to stop drawing attention. She laughed at first, said, "Mom, I can't just stop being myself." I didn't laugh. The next morning, I swapped her bright curtains for plain gray ones. I hid her favorite red lipstick. I told her she looked tired when she dressed up. I told myself I was protecting her. But the truth? I was making her small. Then one night she came into my room crying. She said someone had been standing outside her window, watching her from the street. I ran outside with a flashlight, heart pounding. But the street was empty. Still, I saw the footprints in the dirt. That was the moment I realized someone really was watching her. And all my little fears, they weren't just paranoia. I went to the police. They sent a patrol car, but by the time they came, there was nothing to find. No license plate, no description, no proof. And then, she started changing. Emma used to be so full of life. She'd sing while cooking, laugh at her own jokes, talk to me about her friends. Now she barely looked at herself in the mirror. She started saying, "Maybe you're right, Mom. Maybe it's safer this way." And that's when it hit me. I'd done this. I'd taken her light away. She was alive, but she wasn't living anymore. And worse, the man watching us, he didn't stop. One night I woke up to a noise outside. Footsteps, slow, deliberate, right under Emma's window. I grabbed my phone and crept down the hallway. Through the window I saw a figure standing there, tall, hooded, his face hidden in the dark. He was staring straight up at Emma's room. I shouted and he bolted, but I caught a glimpse, not of his face, but of something worse. He had a camera. We found out later from a neighbor that there'd been a man filming women in our neighborhood for weeks. He'd post their pictures online, call them angels. Emma's face was one of them. Her photo, her smile, had been passed around hundreds of times by strangers. I felt sick. I'd spent months trying to dim her light when I should have been exposing him. I went to the police again. This time they took it seriously. They caught him 2 weeks later, parked in that same car across from our house. He had photos, videos, and an entire folder named Emma. When the police told me that, I broke down, because I realized that while I was busy trying to protect her from being seen, the danger was already here, and it wasn't her beauty that caused it. It was someone else's sickness. Emma's safe now. We moved. We changed everything. She's laughing again, wearing colors again. She even told me last week, "Mom, I'm not hiding anymore." And I smiled. But deep down, I still feel it. That quiet, creeping fear that never really goes away. Because I learned something I'll never forget. You can't keep someone safe by making them smaller. You just end up losing them piece by piece, until there's nothing left to protect. So when people ask what that title means, how do I make my daughter feel ugly? It's not really a question, it's a confession. I think it's finally over. But I'm not sure. It's been 3 weeks since the noises started. And even now, every time the pipes creak or the floor settles, my whole body freezes. I don't think my brain knows what silence sounds like anymore. It all began the first week I moved into this apartment. Small place, 3rd floor, quiet neighborhood, or so I thought. That first night, around 2 a.m., I heard something, faint, like someone dragging furniture against the wall next door. I remember lying there, staring at my ceiling, thinking, wow, someone's redecorating in the middle of the night. It happened again the next night, but louder. Thuds, slow, heavy ones, like footsteps on hollow wood. Then whispers. I told myself it was the pipes, or maybe the neighbors watching TV too loud. I didn't want to seem paranoid, especially since I didn't even know anyone here yet. But then, one evening, my friend Clara came over for dinner. We were talking, laughing, when she suddenly stopped mid-sentence. Her eyes shifted toward the wall behind me. "Hey, do you hear that?" she whispered. It was a man's voice. muffled, low. We pressed our ears against the wall. It sounded like someone talking just inches away from us, except that apartment was supposed to be vacant. I checked the mailboxes the next morning. The one next to mine still had the same name tag as when I moved in. Vacant, maintenance only. I even asked the landlord later that day, trying to sound casual. He said, "Oh, that one? Yeah, it's sealed off. Been empty for years. We had a small fire a while back. We never reopened it. But if it's sealed, who was whispering in there?" Over the next few nights, things got worse. The whispers turned into scraping sounds. And sometimes, this was the worst part, faint tapping, exactly where my bed was against the wall, like someone knocking from the other side. Clara thought maybe someone had broken in. I didn't believe her, until one night around midnight. She came over pale and shaking. "I saw someone," she said. "Through your window, on the balcony next door." The problem was, there was no balcony next door. That apartment had been boarded up for years. We tried to ignore it. We kept telling ourselves it was the wind, maybe rats, anything. But the noises didn't stop. They just changed. Sometimes it sounded like breathing, other times, faint crying. And once I swear I heard my own name. I couldn't sleep. I started leaving the lights on. Every time I closed my eyes, I'd hear a soft scratch. Scratch, and from that wall. And then, one night, there was a knock. Not from my door, from the inside of the wall. That was it. Clara lost it. She grabbed her phone and called the police. They arrived within 15 minutes. 2 officers, young, skeptical, clearly thinking we were overreacting. They asked questions, walked around the apartment, listened for noises. Nothing. Silence. Then one of them knocked on the wall. "Which apartment is on the other side?" he asked. When I told him it was supposed to be sealed, he frowned. "Sealed?" Clara pointed to the hallway. "The door's right there. You'll see. It's completely boarded up. Except when we stepped out, it wasn't boarded anymore. There was an actual door now, old, scratched up, but definitely not sealed." The officers exchanged glances. One of them knocked. For a few seconds, nothing. Then from the other side, 3 knocks back. My stomach dropped. "Police," one of the officers said. "Open up." Silence. Then a single thud, like something heavy hit the floor. They forced the door open. The smell hit us first, a mix of rot, sweat, and something chemical. The room was pitch dark, except for the police. Flashlights sweeping across walls covered in graffiti and torn insulation. There were food wrappers, plastic bottles, dirty blankets. Someone had been living there. In the far corner, a man crouched against the wall. Thin, filthy, wild eyes reflecting the flashlight. He looked wrong, like he hadn't seen daylight in weeks. He didn't run. He just stared, smiling. When the officers approached, he said softly, "You heard me, didn't you?" My legs went numb. They grabbed him, dragged him out, and as they passed me, I heard him whisper, "You reacted just right." The police said he'd been squatting down there for almost a month. Apparently, he had found a way in through the basement, some broken heating vent that led up into the walls. He'd been crawling between apartments, watching people, listening through cracks in the drywall. Just a sick joke, they said. He liked to scare tenants. They changed the locks, sealed the basement, and told me it was safe now. And for a while it was. But here's the thing. The nights are quiet again. Too quiet. Sometimes when I'm sitting alone, I'll feel that same pressure against the wall, like someone leaning, listening. And once, early this morning, I made the mistake of looking into the reflection of my window. For half a second I saw movement, just a blur. right behind me. Now I sleep in the living room. The bedroom's too close to that wall, and even though they swore he's gone, every time I turn off the lights, I swear I hear it again. That faint whisper through the plaster. You reacted just right. When I first moved to the countryside, I thought I'd finally found peace. My name's Amelia, and after losing my job in the city, I decided to start over somewhere quiet, somewhere green, calm, and far from all the noise. The cottage I rented sat on the edge of a small English village called Elderwood, the kind of place that looks like it's frozen in time. Stone walls covered in moss, crooked fences, and fog that never really lifts in the mornings. There was a small patch of forest behind the house. It was beautiful, overgrown, but magical in a way. My landlord told me it was old land and that I should avoid digging too deep back there. At the time, I laughed. I thought he was being dramatic. That was before I found the grave. It started one rainy afternoon. I was trying to plant a small garden behind the cottage. Something simple. Just lavender and a few herbs. The soil was soft from the rain, and after a few minutes of digging, my shovel hit something hard. At first, I thought it was a rock, but when I brushed away the mud, I saw a flat carved stone, a marker. It had no color left, just faint markings that looked like scratches. But when I traced them with my fingers, I realized they were letters. It said, Alara Whitcomb. Born 1315, died 1333. I froze. That couldn't be right. A grave that old? On private land? I took a photo and showed it to my neighbor, Margaret, an older woman who'd lived in Elderwood her entire life. When she saw the picture, the color drained from her face. Don't touch it, she whispered. Don't disturb her. Not again. I asked what she meant by again, but she just shook her head and said, some things should stay buried. That night I couldn't sleep. The wind howled against the windows, and I kept thinking about that grave. Who was Alara? Why was she buried alone behind my house? Around 2 a.m. I heard something. A soft sound, like a woman crying. At first I thought it was the wind, but it didn't fade. It grew closer. I got up, wrapped myself in a blanket, and peeked out the back window. The rain had stopped. The forest was still, but near the garden I saw something, a faint pale glow. It hovered right where I had found the stone. For a moment I couldn't move. Then against every instinct I stepped outside. The air was cold enough to sting my skin. The glow flickered, like candlelight behind fog. I walked closer, and that's when I saw her, a woman, barefoot. Her dress gray and torn like old linen. Her hair clung to her face, wet and tangled. She wasn't solid, more like smoke taking shape. She looked up at me with eyes that didn't shine, and in a voice that sounded like wind through trees, she whispered, "Why did you wake me?" I stumbled back, heart pounding. The light vanished, and I ran inside, locking the door behind me. I didn't sleep that night, just sat there listening, waiting for any sound. The next morning, I went to see Margaret again. I told her everything. She sighed and made me a cup of tea, hands trembling as she spoke. Alara Whitcomb was one of the last to die during the Great Famine, she said. The records say she was buried alive. I stared at her. Buried, alive? Margaret nodded. Back then, people were desperate. They thought the famine was punishment from God. Some said Alara was a witch, that she caused it. Others said she was just a sick girl. Either way, they buried her out there to stop whatever curse they believed she carried. My stomach turned. I thought of the voice whispering in the dark, asking why I woke her. That night, I tried not to think about it. I poured a glass of wine, put on some music, tried to focus on anything else. But as the hours passed, the crying started again. It was louder this time, like someone sobbing right outside the door. Then something hit the window. A dull thud. I turned off the lights, heart racing, and crept toward the sound. There, pressed against the glass, were muddy handprints. Small, trembling handprints. And through the fog, I saw her again. Elara, standing in the rain, her head tilted, lips moving soundlessly. I backed away, whispering, "Please." I didn't mean to disturb you, but she only stared, then lifted her hand and pointed toward the grave. I don't remember deciding to go outside. It's like something pulled me there. The wind was still, the forest too quiet. I walked to the grave, holding my phone flashlight. The earth where I had dug before was now uneven, like something had shifted beneath it. I knelt down, whispering, "I'm sorry," and then the ground gave way. I fell, not far, maybe 4 feet, into a small hollow in the soil. My flashlight hit something solid, a wooden lid, a coffin. The wood was ancient, brittle, but intact, and carved into the lid, clear as day, were words I hadn't seen before. "She will rise when called by name." Before I could even breathe, a cold hand shot out from the earth beside me and grabbed my wrist. I screamed, scrambled out of the hole, and ran for my life, straight into the cottage, slamming the door behind me. I packed my things that night and left before dawn. When the sun rose, I was miles away, shaking, exhausted, and covered in dirt. I went back to the city. I told myself I'd never return. But curiosity, it eats at you. A few weeks later, I looked up the local records online. I found the church's archives from Elderwood, and there, Under Burials 1333 was the name. Elara Whitcomb. Next to it was written in faded ink, "Her spirit shall not rest until she finds her reflection." Reflection. That word stayed in my head for days, until I realized something. When I saw her that night, the pale glow, the woman in the window, her face looked exactly like mine. I don't garden anymore. I don't go near old ground. And sometimes when the night is quiet, I still hear that voice whispering softly from somewhere behind me. "Why did you wake me?"